Amazing, after this cool night you still have holes here. Ah, 7 o'clock in the morning, first night in the Madigan. It was reasonably fresh early in the morning as usual. 4 o'clock, 4:30, there comes that cold dip in the desert, but still comfortable, a bit of ice on the stretcher, but yeah, looks like another glorious day. So it's the Expad mat here, and I had issues with mine last year in the desert, and now summer starts the insulation to come out. Really, I had the down one. I didn't take it this year because I also had it losing air. And I don't know if you can see, the insulation comes out. It's expensive mattress, and that's not good really. And it hasn't been used that often, maybe on 2 trips. Oh, budgies galore!
Oh, what the heck? There must be like...
Wow, that's hundreds! Second day on the Madigan Line. Yeah, it is green as, probably the greenest I've ever seen it, and I've seen it green. Budgies galore, hundreds of them. And yeah, we just retightened my belts again. I just had new belts put on before the trip, and they are supposed to be matching belts, but they're not matching very well because one is definitely quite a bit looser than the other. But now, running the M2K alternator, I have the normal Toyota tensioning system in place, so it's really just loosening one bolt, tighten a little bit. And with the rapid power alternator, that was an absolute pain because it has no tensioning system, so you have to lever with big bars against the engine block. Yeah, nightmare. So very glad that I'm back to the M2K. Not to mention that the M2K has better output in idle and also non-idle. A bit pity that the Madigan is only west-east now. That means you constantly pretty much driving into the sun, or at least in the morning. This is my first desert trip with the new Airbag man airbags in the rear, and yeah, I love it because on the last desert trip with that Solve springs I did bump out occasionally because they weren't as hard as my previous springs. However, got the airbags in, and yeah, very good. I've got them on 15 psi. Haven't really altered them at all since I have them. I don't really need them that much to level the car because the springs sit alright. I pretty much use them as my bump stops in a way, and yeah, works so far brilliantly. Oh yeah, it is. Some pretty healthy pig face. Yeah, you see the moist? See the water? That keeps you alive. If you had a cloth and you really squeeze in there, get a drink out of it.
Where are they?
One thing is astonishing. Have a look at my face and see whether you spot what it is. It's 1 o'clock on the Madigan Line in the desert. Something is missing. What is it? You tell me. And the cover comes in always quite handy here. So that keeps all the iPads and everything out of the heat. What's for lunch, Steve?
White eggs.
For lunch?
Yeah. Bit of hydration.
If you said flies, you were correct. That are the least flies I ever had on a desert trip. You actually have to go and look for them to find one. Very rare. And quite surprising, because there's obviously a lot of green and water around. But yeah, who knows? You have two options to drive these scallop dunes. You can either take a slow approach, which is often very wobbly, or if your suspension allows, you can drive a bit faster for a way smoother and evener ride. In my book, good suspension is one of the most important parts of a well set up tourer, and I'm still surprised how many people skimp on these. Especially for a heavy car like the Cruiser, a good 2.5 inch adjustable remote reservoir shock, for example a King, a Fox, or what I run, the Icon, makes all the difference when you do this type of driving, and also gives you a way better ride on road and better handling, and therefore a safer drive overall.
Was I in the middle of the track taking photos?
You were,
Yeah,
indeed.
sorry about that.
Traffic jam. He stood on the gas. He was about to run you down. Fantastic.
It was awesome to meet so many people who watched my videos on this trip. And with quite a few groups like these, we caught up a few times on our Madigan trip. We saw tons of patches where someone tried, or it seemed like someone tried to burn the country. And here it definitely worked on quite a wide area. I don't know whether that is indigenous burning or not. In my ultimate sand driving video, please check it out if you haven't done so, I mentioned that it is often better to take these dunes with a bit more speed. These had a few doubters, so let me demonstrate you quickly what a difference fast or slow makes on these dunes if you have good suspension. I'm driving now the same dune twice. This is a very slow approach, and you see how the car is swinging from the left to the right, and you pretty much could get seasick. This is how most people tackle the dunes, and I think you will be amazed if you see the difference in the next segment. This now is the exact same dune, just with a little bit faster approach, and you can see how much more even and gentle this drive is faster. I can tell you, sitting inside the car, it makes a big difference. This is Steve with a slow approach, and again you can see that the car is leaning heavily from left to right, and the suspension goes through the full travel on each of the holes. Also watch the sand flag, it is a good indicator how far that car swings. And here's once more the faster approach in my Cruiser. Hardly any swing to the left and the right, and the sand flag is straight as. Of course, this approach is not advisable if you already have inadequate suspension or are heavily overloaded, but you don't need high-end suspension. Any reasonable suspension which is set up to carry the weight you're carrying will do the trick. Let me show you a quick comparison of a wider tire and a narrow tire in sand. Steve's BFG KO2 on 235/85/16. His vehicle weighs around 3.4 ton, and next to it my Landcruiser with 3.8 ton and BFG KM3's 315/75/16. And I think it's quite easy to see that the narrow tires sink in way deeper than my wider BFG KM3, which have more flotation over the sand. And that is even though I weigh nearly half a ton more than the Troopy. Six, 11 past 6, wind is gone. Another beautiful morning in the desert. Second night or third night?
Second.
Second night, day 3. Yeah, beautiful day again. Fresh in the morning, but no ice on the stretcher. But it dropped, I reckon still was below 0, but only from around 5 on. And now we're motoring on. Yesterday 110 kilometers. We'll see how many we managed today. Steve in the lead at present. And yeah, keen to see where the others all parked up, because it got fairly busy last night. We had the group from Western Sydney, 3 cars. Then ahead of us here was a group. Then there came another group of 5 cars. What's on that sign? Interesting. Off the Madigan there is a sign. I don't think it's an official sign. To the Madigan clay pan, which he named the football field. So we taking this now. That's reasonably well defined, but certainly cross country. It's not flat yet. It's pretty bumpy. Anyway, we actually wanted to have a look at that last time, but didn't. Taking the opportunity now.
You go on, I'm going back to the intersection and I'm going to have a cup of tea.
Yeah, don't blame me. I was thinking the same, but we're 2/3 there, so I'm gonna go through that rest now. Interesting that there is now a trek to the football field. That's how Madigan named it. There's also a sign now, and yeah, a track in which is fairly rough. No water this time, but you can see how after rain this would be a little lake. Not for too long, I guess. Unfortunately, someone needed to make circles on there. See who we have here. Jamie Lawson, Bumpy Vestera, Molly Medwin. The visitor's book, that is here for some time.
If you go to the next few
June
pages,
20th, 1939.
that's when the first one was written.
1995.
So yeah.
Okay. Stabilized on-car footage did not really give credit how bumpy that drive is. This gives a little bit better idea. Again, good suspension made a huge difference here. It is very close to cross-country and you drive above many spinifex humps and bumps. With a couple which we crossed paths with a few times before. The lady just purchased memory maps on my advice before the trip and had a few questions which I gladly answered her. Yeah, I'm here on the Madigan Line, a little bit past Camp 12, and around 40 years ago my buddy Denis Bartel walked north-south through the Simpson Desert unaided, and right here somewhere is where there is a confluence between the Madigan Line and his walk. And here he is calling. Hey Denis, how are you, my friend? Yeah, we traveling pretty well. The Madigan is pretty chewed up. And yeah, but otherwise it's all good, and guess where I am? I'm at the confluence where you walked 40 years ago and where you crossed the Madigan. About there, correct. Now, quite amazing, mate. That was certainly a much harder feat than what we're doing here by car now, that is for sure. You were the first one to re-establish the Madigan Line, kind of, or to retrace it based on his diary, is that correct? No GPS, yeah. You had the little Suzuki then. Yeah, Denis, okay, awesome, mate. Then, yeah, we speak when I'm back home, and was great here to feel a bit in your footsteps, even if it's just for a few meters here on the Madigan Line. Talk soon, mate. We now reached the Hay River intersection, or a little bit behind, and yeah, a group of motorbikes there. One came off the bike, cracked his shoulder. He's currently being driven back to Birdsville, and yeah, we're heading off a little bit north on the Hay River back to that Indigenous Midden side. Steve hasn't seen that. Maybe camp there. Wouldn't mind pondering around there a bit more at night. This Indigenous Midden side is not far off the Hay River track, and it also has an Indigenous stone tool workshop. Yeah. When I was here last time, all the trees looked absolutely dead because of the drought. But after the recent rain, it is interesting to see that some of the trees come back. I haven't put much effort really into making a proper bundle. But I'm wondering whether that is enough here for flint and steel. Did you put that there?
Did I put what?
These or Steve?
Steve.
Okay. Let's see how we go. Here we are.
Fire! I missed you so much. Me too. Well, I'll get to see you next week. No. Okay. Wait. Alright.
What's for dinner today?
We have vegetables. We have some nice pork, is it? And we have some nice rice. Brown rice. We have our chairs down by the fire, and we have our stretchers all set up. My dad started the fire only with a flint and steel. So, a ferro rod, yep. We're camping over here, and Steve is close by us looking at the map.
So guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please keep in mind this is a self-funded channel, so I would greatly appreciate if you could help me out by sharing, liking and subscribing. And if you can, please consider head over to Patreon or buy me a coffee, and with the equivalent of a cup of coffee or two per month, you can really help me making these videos. Thanks a lot for watching and see you along the tracks.